Horror fans remember the 1980s horror films for their wild, over-the-top scenes filled with violence. This period was marked by major changes in technology and concerns about moral issues. The rise of cheap and unregulated videocassette recorders, or VCRs, made graphic horror films, which were previously only available in select theaters or foreign markets, easily accessible in people's homes. The combination of the slasher film trend and the widespread availability of VHS tapes led to a period of intense scrutiny and censorship in both the US and Europe. In today's video, we'll be exploring the 18 most controversial horror films from the 1980s. Before we get into the main explanation, it's key to understand the 1980s era and really break down the main types of restrictions these films faced. First, we have a theatrical pullout, which occurs when a distributor or cinema chain stops showing a film, usually due to public protest or negative press. Second up, we have an official ban or regional refusal, which happens when a government or local authority decides not to allow a film to be shown in a specific area. Next, we have video censorship and prosecution, which was seen during the UK's video nasty period. This involved the legal seizure of films and the taking of action against distributors under obscenity laws, driven by the Video Recordings Act of 1984. Meanwhile, the American censorship environment of the 80s was driven more by market pressure, public protest, and the MPAA's institutional paralysis rather than by federal legislation. Now that we've covered the basics, let's move on to exploring the movies that sparked such a great deal of controversy. Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1984. The killer Santa that traumatized America's Christmas spirit. TriStar Pictures could never have anticipated the backlash that would surround their holiday horror film. Silent Night, Deadly Night was released by TriStar Pictures on November 9, 1984. It became one of the most controversial films of the 1980s, mainly due to its advertising campaign. The posters and TV spots focused heavily on the killer dressed as Santa Claus. The story begins with a young man named Billy Chapman. As a child, he saw his parents murdered on Christmas Eve by a man dressed as Santa Claus, which left him deeply traumatized. He then grew up in a strict and abusive Catholic orphanage. Years later, as an adult, the Christmas season triggers his mental breakdown and he becomes a killer while wearing a Santa costume. The Parent-Teacher Association tried to get this film taken out of theaters. They were concerned about the film's content and that it was shown during Christmas. Ads on TV, which ran during family-friendly shows like Little House on the Prairie, caused parents to complain that the children were scared of Santa Claus. Basically, it was ruining the whole Christmas spirit for children. Large crowds of angry families protested the film at theaters and malls nationwide. At its East Coast premiere in the Bronx, New York City, protesters picketed and sang Christmas carols. An editorial in Variety noted that most protests stemmed from concerns that portraying a killer in a Santa Claus suit would traumatize children and erode their trust in Santa Claus. Even though the movie got mixed reviews and was pulled from theaters just a week after it came out, it actually did pretty well during its opening weekend, making $2.5 million on a budget of $750,000. Ever since, it's built up a cult following and has led to a series of 4 sequels. The 4th and 5th ones don't really have anything to do with the original, and there was even a loose remake in 2012. There are reports that another reboot is currently in development. Silent Night, Deadly Night turned into a warning tale about being careful with holiday marketing. In the end, it gained a cult following thanks to all the buzz around it. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980, depicted extreme violence and actual animal cruelty, which has led to bans in numerous countries and removal from theaters. Ruggero Deodato's film about an Amazon expedition pushed the limits of what movies could show, leaving a lasting impact on the industry. Cannibal Holocaust became infamous for its graphic violence, stirring up a ton of controversy. The story follows an anthropologist named Harold Monroe, who leads a rescue team into the Amazon rainforest to find a missing group of filmmakers. They had been shooting a documentary about local cannibal tribes, but the discovered footage shows terrible acts of violence and cannibalism meant only to shock viewers. After it premiered in Italy on February 7, 1980, a local magistrate ordered it to be seized. Deodato, along with screenwriter Gianfranco Clarisi and producers Alda Pia, Francesco Pelagi, and Franco Di Nunzio, ended up being convicted of obscenity. The film wasn't released from seizure until 1982, and it ended up getting banned in over 50 countries, including the UK, Australia, South Africa, and several other places because of its shocking content, which included sexual assault and real violence against animals. Even after legal vindication, many territories maintained restrictions on it into the 21st century. The primary censorship concerns surrounding Cannibal Holocaust relate to the on-screen killings of animals. Director Ruggero Deodato has publicly denounced these actions, remarking how it was foolish of him to include animals. Although 6 animal deaths are shown in the film, 7 animals were actually killed during production. The scene with the monkey's death was filmed twice, leading to the death of 2 monkeys. Cannibal Holocaust was innovative because of its plot structure, especially the use of found footage, which would become a staple of horror later on. In the film, the footage is brought back to civilization and shown to understand what happened to the crew that filmed it. Who knew that this style would later become popular in Hollywood with films like The Last Broadcast and The Blair Witch Project using similar storytelling methods? Each film features a lost film crew making a documentary in the wilderness, and their footage is later returned. He said that the film set the standard for debates about extreme cinema censorship.
It pretends to be humble, but it really wants to conquer the world.
The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988. Religious protests caused chains to stop screenings. Martin Scorsese's take on Nikos Kazantzaki's novel sparked the biggest wave of religious protests against a film in American history. The Last Temptation of Christ hit 123 theaters on August 12, 1988, in the US and Canada, ranking in $401,000 during its opening weekend. The film portrays Jesus Christ's life and his struggles with temptation, including fear, doubt, and even lust. It shows him imagining sexual activities, sparking outrage from some Christian groups who deemed it blasphemous. The rage was so intense that on October 22, 1988, an integralist Catholic group set fire to the Saint Michel Cinema in Paris during a film screening. An incendiary device ignited under a seat in the underground room, injuring 13 people, 4 of whom were severely burned and causing significant damage to the cinema. Film critic Roger Ebert, in his book Scorsese by Ebert, noted that the film sparked a strong reaction, leading to death threats against Scorsese. Many TV evangelists spoke out against the movie, which was so intense that Scorsese needed to have bodyguards with him during public events for several years. The film made some big changes to the gospel stories, including a scene where Jesus and Mary Magdalene get married and have a romantic moment. Because of this, a lot of Christian groups voiced their anger and organized protests and boycotts when the movie came out. One protest, put together by a California religious radio station, saw around 600 people show up to picket the headquarters of Universal Studios' parent company, MCA. Many countries, including Greece, South Africa, Turkey, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina, banned or censored the film for several years. As of February 2024, it's still banned in the Philippines and Singapore. Back in 1989, Blockbuster Video decided not to stock the film in their stores. However, you could still buy it on their website. Then, in the mid-90s, The Last Temptation of Christ sparked a new round of protests in Canada and Russia when it aired on national TV. The movie received mixed reviews from critics about its visual style, but it earned Martin Scorsese a nomination for Best Director at the Academy Awards. In 1997, the American Film Institute honored him with the Life Achievement Award, which is the highest honor in Hollywood. The controversy surrounding the film raised important questions about First Amendment rights and religious protest. Universal Studios responded by publishing open letters to support artistic freedom.
Sure, it's good to talk to you, Henry. You're not judgmental or anything like that.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, 1986. Distributor pullouts and MPAA rating battles delayed theatrical runs. John McNaughton's realistic look at a serial killer ran into some serious trouble with distribution when the MPAA slapped it with an X rating, which is usually for adult films. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, is an indie 1986 psychological horror flick directed and co-written by McNaughton, and it dives into the chaotic crime spree of a serial killer who seems to get away with everything. The movie shows a cold, realistic look at a nomadic killer who is murdering without feeling any emotion. In fact, Henry and Otis, the main characters, are loosely based on Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, who were convicted real-life serial killers. The film's raw portrayal of violence led the MPAA to assign it an X rating, harming its release prospects. Atlantic Pictures withdrew from distribution, and it couldn't secure a theatrical release until 1990, with the MPAA stating that no amount of cuts would change the rating. The movie had a bit of a rough ride, with the UK BBFC going through several rounds of cuts, mostly taking out parts with sexual violence and the family massacre scenes. Distributor Electric Pictures edited scenes before submitting to the BBFC, and further cuts were made for theatrical and home video release. In 2003, the BBFC approved the film fully uncut in the UK for the first time. New Zealand initially banned the film, but later released a version with some scenes removed. It took years before an uncut DVD was allowed. The censorship battle revealed a major issue with the rating system, leading the MPAA to replace the unclear X rating with the NC-17 in 1990. The film did well in theaters, benefiting from positive reviews it received at festivals. The film is featured in 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, highlighting its gritty realism and strong acting. While it's not exactly a fun watch, it does spark questions about our fascination with serial killers. Michael Rooker's role made it to Slant Magazine's list of 15 famous movie psychopaths, and it's considered a key example of postmodern horror cinema. Faces of Death, reissues in early 80s. The shockumentary that spawned international bans. Faces of Death, which was later re-released as the original Faces of Death, is a 1978 American horror movie by John Allen Schwartz. The film looks like a real documentary and follows a pathologist named Francis B. Gross, played by Michael Carr. He shows audiences clips of people dying in disturbing ways from different sources. While some scenes were staged for the movie, many parts use real footage of real deaths and their aftermaths. Because of how it integrates reality and fiction, it caused moral panic, with many unable to tell what was real accident footage and what was just staged. Faces of Death was banned and censored in multiple countries because of its graphic content, with claims of being banned in 46 countries often exaggerated for marketing. In the UK, it was added to the Video Nasty list under the Obscene Publications Act in 1959. In 2003, it was released on DVD, but the British Board of Film Classification required cuts of 2 minutes and 19 seconds to remove scenes of animal cruelty. In 1980, Faces of Death was banned by the Australian Classification Board, though bootleg VHS tapes still circulate. It was unbanned and released uncut on DVD in 2007, while its sequels remain banned. The film was also banned in New Zealand in 1989 and edited for a VHS release in Germany, which lifted the ban in 2022. Faces of Death didn't get great reviews, but somehow it was a major hit at the box office, making over $35 million worldwide. It picked up a cult following and led to a bunch of sequels, with the first one, Faces of Death 2, coming out in 1981. Maniac, 1980. William Lustig's brutal and raw urban portrait of a killer stalking New York. William Lustig's psycho slasher set in New York ran into some serious censorship issues because of its graphic violence against women, so the movie revolves around a disturbed man in New York who murders women and keeps their scalps as trophies, spiraling deeper into sadistic madness. It was made on a super tight budget, and a lot of the scenes were shot guerrilla style. It was originally seen as an exploitation film, but over time, Maniac has built up a cult following. Even though it wasn't charged with obscenity and didn't get tagged as a video nasty, Maniac was confiscated by police in Greater Manchester and Lancashire during that whole video nasty scare. This probably happened because of the film's bad reputation abroad. The film was released without a rating because it wasn't submitted to the MPAA. It was labeled for adults only. Although the poster said no one under 17 will be admitted, a heavily edited version of the film received an R rating and was released in March 1981 in the South and in several other states, including California. This followed the initial unrated release in January 1981 in New York. In Australia, the film's promotional campaign showed a censored version of the movie poster. The poster blacked out the scalp that the killer was holding. Joe Spinell's intense portrayal of the scalp-collecting killer, Frank Zito, paired with guerrilla-style New York street photography, crafted a disturbingly authentic urban nightmare. The scenes with mannequins dressed in victim scalps became iconic symbols of 1980s horror extremism. The film Maniac left a significant impact. It's a prime example of how exploitation cinema can intersect with serious urban horror, influencing later psychological slasher films. Frequently appearing on banned lists in the UK, it highlighted a growing sensitivity to sexualized misogynistic violence during the early 80s. Tenebrae, 1982. Dario Argento's film attracted seizures and cuts, UK, and temporary withdrawals. Dario Argento made a comeback to Giallo films after experimenting with supernatural themes, but he faced a lot of censorship in several places. We're talking about his movie Tenebrae, which which ended up getting a wide theatrical release across Italy and mainland Europe, which is important for Argento since he had some serious distribution issues with his last movie, Inferno. Released in 1982, Tenebrae had modest box office success in Italy and Europe, but didn't perform as well as some of Argento's earlier films. It received a VM-18 rating in Italy, preventing viewers under 18 from seeing it. The film features an American writer named Peter Neal visiting Rome to promote his new murder mystery book. While there, he gets caught up in the hunt for a serial killer who seems to be using his novel as an inspiration for real-life murders. The movie explores ideas about dual identity and unusual sexual behavior with a self-aware story-within-a-story feel. Many believe director Dario Argento made Tenebrae as a response to the criticism he faced for how he portrayed the killings of women in his earlier films. One of the film's most violent scenes is the death of Neal's ex-wife, Jane, which faced significant cuts in its initial Italian release. For a few years, people in Italy could not see the uncensored version of the film legally because all the copies were taken away. Later, a DVD was released that included the restored scene. Tenebrae is one of Argento's most violent films, averaging a murder every 10 minutes. In the United Kingdom, this film was placed on the well-known list of video nasties and was banned from sale until 1999. They even cut 5 seconds from the arm-severing scene before its theatrical release. In the US, it remained unseen until 1984 when a heavily edited version, titled Unsane, was released. This version was about 10 minutes shorter and omitted much of the violence, making the horror sequences incomprehensible and the narrative hard to follow. It received mostly negative reviews. The film's reputation around the world was mostly shaped by censorship, but today it's seen as one of Argento's best works. The original version eventually became easier to find, and now a lot of fans and critics think it's one of his top films. The New York Ripper, 1982, Fulci's controversial and overtly sexualized gore film set in New York. Lucio Fulci's twisted serial killer thriller really pushed the limits of what was considered shocking, even for the infamous video nasties. In the movie, a police lieutenant is trying to catch a brutal serial killer who's keen on attacking women across New York with a switchblade and a straight razor. The movie's shooting took place in New York from late August to October 1981, with some interior scenes shot in Italy. The script got a last-minute rewrite by Sacchetti just before they started filming. The New York Ripper hit theaters in Italy on March 4th, 1982, and it ended up raking in about £1 billion during its initial run, also doing really well internationally. In the UK, the film went through the British Board of Film Classification, the BBFC, and Carol Topolsky called it the most damaging film she's ever seen and described it as an unending display of the main villain slicing up women. Because of that, the movie was banned in the UK and couldn't be sold until 2002. The relentless combination of explicit gore and graphic sexualized violence prompted severe criticisms. Even in the US, they had a limited theatrical release in 1984, and it was released on VHS in 1987, where it was slightly edited by Vidmark Entertainment. The film is often discussed in debates about on-screen sexual violence and the ethical boundaries of exploitation cinema, leaving a significant impact. Anthropophagus, 1980, Italian cannibal shocker that defined video nasty excess. Anthropophagus, also called Anthropophagus the Beast, the Savage Island, and in some places even the Grim Reaper, is a 1980 Italian horror flick directed by Joe D'Amato, who co-wrote it with George Eastman. This movie is known for its extreme gore and has earned a bit of a cult following, especially among hardcore horror fans who love the more obscure stuff. Now, if you're wondering why, here's a brief mention about the movie without any spoilers. The movie shows tourists stranded on a remote island and they make a horrifying discovery. There's a cannibal who preys on anything that's still alive. Some are of the opinion that the movie's cult reputation mostly comes from its shocking cannibal themes, especially the infamous scene where the killer brutally attacks a pregnant woman, ripping out her fetus and biting into it. This graphic moment pushed the film onto the UK's notorious Video Nasties list, leading to legal prosecution in the early 1980s. Ironically, all that controversy only helped the movie become a cult legend among horror fans. So, how's it been received over the years? D'Amato said that Anthropophagus really surprised everyone with how well it did with both critics and audiences overseas. Writer John Kenneth Muir called it a scary little Italian movie and highlighted its creepy vibe and the final chase scene.
My name is Emily. I've been looking for...
The Beyond, 1981. Fulci's Gates of Hell that horrified censors worldwide. Looks like we got another one of Lucio Fulci's movies on this controversial list. The Beyond is a supernatural horror movie that's got this Southern Gothic vibe and first hit theaters in Italy during the spring of 1981. The story is about a woman named Lisa Merrill who inherits a hotel in rural Louisiana. After moving in, she discovers the hotel was the site of a terrible murder in the past and might actually be a doorway to hell. It wasn't until late 1983 that it made its way to North America, and that was through Aquarius Releasing, which put out a chopped-up version called 7 Doors of Death. This shortened version had a completely different soundtrack and was several minutes shorter than Fulci's original. It also got hit with the Video Nasty label when it was released in the UK. After its release, the response to The Beyond was diverse. Many critics, both now and in the past, have praised the film for its surreal style, music, special effects, and cinematography. However, they also point out that the story has some plot holes. Horror filmmakers and surrealists often see these issues as a way to create confusion, which helps build the film's eerie atmosphere and overall direction. If it wasn't for the initial edits made for US audiences, it would have never reached cult status. The censorship created so much hype that fans still seek out the uncut European versions. Today, The Beyond stands as one of Fulci's most acclaimed films, with a dedicated international fan following over the years. The House by the Cemetery, 1981. Lucio Fulci's final Gates of Hell film, notorious for its status as a video nasty. The House by the Cemetery is a horror movie directed by Lucio Fulci, who got some of his ideas for the story from the creepy tales of H.P. Lovecraft, while writer Sacchetti was inspired by Henry James's novella The Turn of the Screw. The movie centers on a creepy supernatural killer who haunts a house in Massachusetts, brutally murdering people one by one. As the story unfolds, the dark secret buried in the basement comes to light, revealing the true horror within the home. When it premiered in Italy in August 1981, The House by the Cemetery became a big hit, earning $462 million. This made it Fulci's most successful horror film of the 80s. However, the film features disturbing images and a lot of gore. Its easy availability on VHS led to it being one of 39 films banned in the UK under the Obscene Publications Act. The Italian Ratings Board requested a 6-second cut in the movie where Dagmar Lysander's character, Laura Gittleson, is killed. Fulci agreed to this change because he was unhappy with the effects in some shots. The film premiered in Turin on August 14, 1981, and was distributed by Medusa Distribuzione in Italy. In UK, the film was distributed by Eagle Films, and it premiered in Derbyshire on the 2nd of July, 1982, before expanding to other cities in the fall. The BBFC passed the film after trimming scenes of Anne and Laura's murders, resulting in an 84-minute, 49-second running time. Even after the trim, the film was placed on the UK's Video Nasty list according to the Video Recordings Act in 1984. The uncut version was finally released in 2009.
I, Stanley Cooper Smith, command you!
Evil Speak, 1981. The satanic computer nightmare that sparked a cult panic. Evil Speak, which came out in 1981 and was directed by Eric Weston, along with co-writer Joseph Garofalo, is known as one of the infamous video nasties that got banned in the UK during the 80s. The movie follows Stanley Coopersmith, a lonely cadet who's bullied by other students and teachers at a military school. One day, he finds an old book of dark magic that belonged to an evil priest. Using his computer, Stanley taps into the book's powers, calling on Satan and casting spells to get revenge on everyone who mistreated him. It hit theaters in Japan on August 22, 1981, and made its way to the US on February 26, 1982. The movie was quickly labeled a video nasty in the UK after its release on the Video Space label. It was banned for several years under the Video Recordings Act because of its violent ending and themes surrounding Satanism. The film was reassessed and re-released in 1987 with over 3 minutes of cuts, removing much of the gore and all text images of the Black Mass. It was later passed without any cuts by the BBFC in 2004 and is now available in both uncut and re-edited versions. Anton LaVey, who was the founder and high priest of the Church of Satan, loved the film and thought it was very satanic. Clint Howard, the actor, said that director Eric Weston originally submitted a longer version of the film to the MPAA. This version included more blood, gore, and nudity than the unrated version, especially in the scene where Mrs. Fredemeyer was attacked by pigs in the shower and during the final confrontation. In the end, we can say that evil speak shows how occult themes can lead to censorship, even in mainstream mid-tier horror movies.
I will have my revenge!
The Burning. 1981, Tony Maylam's summer camp slasher faced regional opposition due to its extreme Tom Savini gore effects. The Burning is a 1981 slasher flick directed by Tony Maylam, and it's based on the New York urban legend of the Cropsey Maniac. The movie follows a summer camp caretaker who's badly burned in a prank that goes terribly wrong. Years later, he returns to a nearby camp, disguised and armed, determined to take revenge on those responsible. His anger drives him to terrorize the campers and staff, leading to a chilling series of events at the summer camp. When it first came out, critics weren't too impressed. They pointed out how similar it was to Friday the 13th and its sequel, plus they weren't fans of the graphic violence. But over time, it's gained a cult following and has actually been looked at more positively by some film buffs. Although slasher films thrived on graphic gore effects, the MPAA responded to critical reactions and protests, particularly after events like John Lennon's assassination and the rising concerns about media violence. As a result, The Burning was heavily cut to secure an R rating, remaining censored in the US until its 2007 DVD release, which restored the gore scenes. The British cinema release of The Burning was cut by the BBFC, receiving an X certificate in September 1981 with edits to the scissor murder and some gore during the raft attack. An uncut video released by Thorn EMI was deemed a video nasty and subject to seizure under the Obscene Publications Act. In 1992, a video re-release faced additional cuts, but the film was finally released with no cuts in 2002. The Burning shows that even popular slasher films could be censored during a time of moral panic. This cult classic had a difficult initial release because it had to be cut to receive an R rating. These cuts removed much of the intended impact, leading to disappointing box office results at first. Nightmare. 1981. Censorship actions in Europe led to withdrawn prints. Nightmare is a 1981 slasher flick that dives into psychological horror, written and directed by Romano Scavolini. The story is about a disturbed man who, after going through an experimental medical treatment, is released from a psychiatric hospital in New York City. He then sets out on a road trip to Florida with a dark plan to harm his ex-wife and child. It stirred up a lot of controversy due to its intense violence and sexual content, earning an X rating from the Motion Picture Association of America. Based on the premise, it's no wonder that the film ended up getting banned in the UK, even when it was shown under the title Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, and it even faced legal trouble for being labeled a video nasty. 3 executives from the film's British distribution company faced legal action for releasing the film uncut, violating the British Board of Film Classification's ruling to remove about 48 seconds of footage. In 1984, they were found guilty, with 2 receiving 18 and 9-month sentences. The film was banned in the UK until 2001, when an edited version was released. The controversy grew because of false claims that Tom Savini worked on the special effects, which he strongly denied. This misleading marketing increased the film's notoriety. What's the impact of the movie? Nightmare was one of the few video nasties to lead to prison sentences for distributors. A clip from the film appears in the 2021 horror movie Censor, which explores the video nasty controversy in the UK. The Prowler. 1981, at times pulled or restricted for graphic content in conservative territories. The Prowler was released in 1981, and it was directed by Joseph Zito and written by Neil Barbara and Glenn Leopold. The film is set in a coastal California town where a group of college students are stalked and killed during their graduation party. The killer is believed to be an old World War II veteran who had murdered his ex-girlfriend, Rosemary Chatham, back in 1945. The movie was released as Rosemary's Killer in Australia and Europe, and its cut version removes much of Tom Savini's gore effects. The German edition, titled Die Forke des Todes, which translates to The Pitchfork of Death, omits all gore scenes, including the killer's identity reveal, and substitutes the soundtrack with bird and cricket sounds along with uncredited synthesizer music. The Encyclopedia of Horror noted that Savini's notably vivid special effects led to many of the killings being cut in the UK release. Unfortunately, the film wasn't a commercial success, ranking 135th at the US box office with under $1 million grossed. The Prowler, despite divided reviews, gained a cult following for its hard-edged violence and atmospheric style, all thanks to Tom Savini's special effects. It's been recognized as one of the greatest slasher films by publications like Complex and Paste Magazine and is considered a classic within the genre. Critics have also compared it to another slasher film from the same year, My Bloody Valentine. Although this film is known for its technical skillfulness in the slasher genre, its difficult release history shows the ongoing struggle filmmakers face with changing local rules about graphic content.
Come to me now.
Videodrome, 1983. Not universally pulled, but faced protests and bans in some markets and heavy censorship debates. Videodrome, written and directed by David Cronenberg, came out in 1983. It was the first time Cronenberg got backing from a big Hollywood studio, thanks to Universal Pictures. With a budget of $5.9 million, it became the priciest film he'd made up until that point. The movie takes place in Toronto in the early 1980s and follows the CEO of a small TV station. He stumbles upon strange broadcast signals showing snuff films. As he tries to find where the signal's coming from, he gets caught up in a complicated web of lies and mind control. At the same time, he starts having stronger and more disturbing hallucinations that make him lose touch with reality. Sadly, the movie didn't perform great at the box office, making only around $2.1 million, but it still became a cult classic. It's regarded as one of Cronenberg's best, exemplifying body horror and science fiction horror. Some venues rejected screenings due to the film's graphic violence and extreme body horror, while its commentary on media violence made censors uneasy. Cronenberg had kind of anticipated the video nasty censorship and the bigger discussions around media violence. The movie dives into how violent media can mess with people's heads, which made it pretty controversial, especially during that time of moral panic. Videodrome sparked important discussions about media violence and censorship. Isn't it interesting how the movie's themes were ahead of their time, predicting future controversies? In the end, the movie did get a lot of love for its amazing special makeup effects, Cronenberg's directing, and the performances from Woods and Harry. People also appreciated its techno-surrealist vibe and its mysterious psychosexual themes. Cronenberg snagged the Best Direction award and picked up 7 more nominations at the 5th Genie Awards. I Spit on Your Grave reissues in the early 80s. Although originally 1978, its early 80s reissues caused theater pullings and bans. Originally called Day of the Woman, this film was released in 1978 and was written and directed by Mir Zarchi. So, in the movie, a fiction writer, Jennifer Hills, hunts down and kills her attacker in a brutal revenge because he assaulted her and left her for dead. The film became well known for its controversial and graphic depictions of violence, especially the 30-minute segment of gang rape. It gained a notoriety as a video nasty in the UK and faced censorship. Film critic Roger Ebert famously condemned it, labeling it a vile bag of trash. The film is still very controversial today and is often considered one of the worst movies ever made. Some people believe that this controversy is why it has become a cult classic. Even though it received mainly negative reviews, critics praised Keaton's performance. Many countries, including Ireland, Iceland, Norway, and West Germany, banned the film for glorifying violence against women. Canada initially banned it, but later allowed provinces to decide on its release. Since 1998, some provinces like Nova Scotia, Manitoba, and Quebec have released the film with content-appropriate ratings. The American version of the film came out in Australia in 1982 with an R18+ rating. In 1987, it survived an appeal to ban it, but was ultimately banned in 1997 due to reclassification. In the UK, the film was denied a cinema certificate by censors, but was released on home video, earning the label Video Nasty. In New Zealand, the no-cut version of the film, which ran for 102 minutes, was classified as R20 in 1984 for graphic violence and content that may disturb. The Irish Film Classification Office has banned the film from sale again. The new uncensored Blu-ray and DVD editions are prohibited for purchase by retailers due to the film's nature. The movie continues to remain the most polarizing film in censorship history, known for its enduring controversy over its depiction of sexual violence and themes of retribution. Necromantic, 1987. The German underground shock film famous for its explicit depiction of necrophilia. Necromantic is a West German horror film and a pretty wild one. It was released in 1987, co-written and directed by Jörg Buttgereit. The movie follows a young man named Robert Schmatke who works on a cleanup crew in places after fatal accidents. This job lets him explore his unusual fetishes with dead bodies, which even his wife Betty shares. It's very clear that the movie dives into some pretty controversial stuff like necrophilia, which has led to it being banned in various places. Over the years, it's gained a bit of a cult following thanks to its bold and shocking imagery. The film is banned in Iceland, Malaysia, Singapore, and parts of Canada, Nova Scotia, and Ontario. It was outright banned in Australia in 1992 for graphic necrophilia content, and in Finland in 1993. In 1999, New Zealand banned it for objectionable content for the same necrophilia and violence. Other countries have also banned it. The initial re-release faced few issues, but controversy over the sequel, Necromantic 2, led to a temporary ban on mail-order sales of the original in Germany. Necromantic is known for raising questions about artistic freedom and moral standards. Its controversial subject matter pushes the boundaries of film expression. The film's choice to challenge the mainstream and its extreme content helped it gain a reputation as a unique cult classic. It is also considered a key example in discussions about censorship among fans of underground cinema. Analysis segment. Coming to the analysis portion of our video, some movies got banned worldwide, but most of them were restricted because of local politics and religious beliefs rather than their actual content. The UK's Video Nasty campaign really stands out compared to the religious protests in the US or the different rules in various European countries. It's worth mentioning that two big waves of censorship really shaped the decade back then. American protests, led by religious and parent groups like those against Silent Night, Deadly Night, and The Last Temptation of Christ, showed different responses to controversial films. In the UK, the Video Nasties campaign went further by prosecuting distributors under obscenity laws. The British approach was more thorough and used legal penalties, while the American response mainly came from grassroots efforts and market reactions. You can also say that censorship battles have shaped film culture and industry practices. Some withdrawn films gained cult followings and led to underground distribution. Others resulted in legal action and changes to BBFC policies and MPAA ratings. Controversies over films like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, helped to create new rating categories. In fact, economic factors usually took precedence over artistic value when it came to censorship. Movies were pulled not just because of their content, but also due to distributors being cautious, theater rules, and insurance issues. The costs of challenging censorship often outweighed any potential profits, which led to filmmakers actively avoiding controversial material. Marvelous verdict. Just because a film is pulled from theaters doesn't mean it's forgotten. In fact, it often means the opposite. These 18 films became important examples of how societies deal with violent and challenging art, whether due to moral panic, religious protest, or official censorship. The controversy that made these films dangerous has become what makes them culturally significant. Censors, in trying to protect society, inadvertently preserved a record of 1980s fears, prejudices, and the ongoing struggle between artistic freedom and social control. With that, we've reached the end of today's video. Which of these controversial movies have you seen, and what totally legal source did you use to watch them? Did any of them leave a mark? Are there any you think we should follow up on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. We'll catch you in our next marvelous video. Until then, take care, and thanks for tuning in.